Before we had modern diagnostic tests to study the brain, an early connection would have been through accidents. If somebody falls down and damages one portion of one part of their brain, we would look and see how their behavior was altered to make that connection. For example, the occipital lobe in the back of the brain involves vision. Before we had modern technology, one may have recognized if somebody fell down and hit the back of their head, it may impact their vision. Their vision may have been blurred. Also, lesioning or destroying brain tissue, whether it would be removal of a growth or a tumor on the brain, and then watching the person to see how that affected their behavior. One case that you find in the book is a man named Phineas Gage. Phineas was a railroad foreman in the 1840s, very logical man in charge of a large crew. One day on the job, there was an accident, there was an explosion, and a tamping rod, which you can see in the picture, went in through the bottom of his cheek, under his cheekbone, and came out the top of his head. Phineas survived the explosion, but it did have a profound effect. We know that the tamping rod severed the frontal lobe from the limbic system in Phineas's brain. The frontal lobe is responsible for logical thought, your higher mental processes, judgment, morals, decision-making. The limbic system, or the midbrain, is your emotional center. Normally, when you experience some emotion, such as, let's say, anger, your boss makes you angry, and you're feeling that anger, those impulses go to your frontal lobe and you reason through it. Your frontal lobe is your higher mental thought processes, so this will calm you down. You will reason through those anger impulses and realize that you can't say anything to your boss because you could get fired. So it kind of puts your emotions in check. When those were severed, Phineas was an emotional wreck. He would experience intense happiness or sadness or anger, and those impulses could not get to his frontal lobe for him to reason through these emotions or impulses and calm down. Now we will move on to some more modern diagnostic tests to study the brain. First of all, the electroencephalogram, or EEG. This records different brainwave patterns. And as you can see, you have different leads connected to the scalp with like an airplane glue, and each of those leads are connected to or show the brainwave pattern on a computer screen. EEGs are often used to look at sleep disorders. As we sleep, we go through different periods of brainwave patterns. We have beta waves, we have theta waves, delta waves that we experience during the night. And an EEG will show those different brainwave patterns. So if someone has a sleep disorder, we could recognize which brainwave pattern there was a problem with. So an electroencephalogram will show brainwave pattern or activity of the brain. A computer tomography or CT scan is simply taking a picture. This is imaging, which involves x-rays. So if you want to look at a particular structure and take a picture of the brain, looking at maybe fluid or some physical alteration of the brain, such as a tumor, you could use a CT scan. A magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI scan, is also just taking a picture. But instead of using x-ray, it's a better test, a computer-generated test that, again, just shows the structures or image of the brain. A PET scan or positron emission tomography test shows brain activity or brain function by measuring the glucose. A person usually has a radioactive dye injected which binds with the glucose. Whenever a certain part of the brain is active, glucose flows to that area. So then you can see on the screen if certain areas of the brain are functioning properly. Finally, a functional MRI test, again, shows function or activity in the brain, similar to a PET scan. But instead of measuring glucose level, here you see brain activity by looking at blood flow. Whenever certain parts of the brain are active, blood is flowing to those areas. Again, you can see on a screen, a computer screen, if certain parts of the brain are functioning properly by looking at the blood flow.